If you've ever felt completely drained after talking to someone for just 5 minutes, this video will save your sanity. I'm about to reveal why certain people can literally steal your energy through conversation, and the 12 ancient techniques that Buddhist monks use to become completely immune to emotional vampires. But first, let me ask you something that might shock you. What if I told you that 80% of the anxiety you feel every day isn't even yours? Think about it. You wake up feeling fine, then your phone buzzes. It's that friend who always has a crisis. 20 minutes later, you're carrying their relationship drama, their work stress, their family problems. You've become their emotional garbage dump, and you don't even realize it's happening. Here's what nobody tells you. There are people walking among us who unconsciously feed off other people's emotional energy. They're not evil, they're not doing it on purpose, but they're slowly draining the life out of everyone around them. And if you're a naturally caring person, you're their perfect target. Buddhist monks figured this out 500 years ago. They had to, because monasteries were full of people going through spiritual crises, emotional breakdowns, and deep psychological work. If the monks didn't have protection techniques, they'd all be emotional wrecks within weeks. So they developed 12 secret practices that made them completely immune to emotional contagion. These weren't just meditation techniques. These were psychological shields that allowed them to help others without destroying themselves. The problem is, these techniques were kept hidden in remote temples, passed down only from master to student. Until now, today I'm breaking that silence. Through 12 ancient stories, you'll discover exactly how to identify energy vampires, how to protect yourself from emotional manipulation, and how to maintain your inner peace no matter who you're around. But I have to warn you, once you master these techniques, some people in your life won't like the new you. Because when you stop absorbing their chaos, they'll have to deal with their own emotions for the first time. Are you ready for that kind of power? Deep in the mountains of ancient Japan, there lived a young monk named Kozen, whose heart was so open that it became his greatest weakness. Kozen had joined the monastery believing that true compassion meant feeling everything that others felt, carrying every burden that crossed his path. Every morning, as the monks gathered for meditation, Kozen would notice who seemed troubled. Brother Jinzen, worried about his spiritual progress. Brother Tetsu, grieving his mother's recent death. Brother Gaku, paralyzed by fear that he wasn't worthy of enlightenment. And Kozen, with his tender heart, would approach each one. He would sit with Jinzen and absorb his doubt until Kozen himself began questioning his own spiritual calling. He would comfort Tetsu and take on his grief until Kozen found himself weeping for a woman he had never met. He would counsel Gaku and absorb his fears until Kozen felt unworthy of his own place in the monastery. The other monks loved Kozen for this. Whenever they had problems, they knew exactly where to go. Kozen became the unofficial therapist of the temple, available day and night for anyone who needed emotional support. And Kozen believed this was his sacred duty. But something devastating began happening. Although everyone around Kozen found peace after talking to him, Kozen himself grew more troubled each day. He would lie awake at night, his mind racing with worries that belonged to dozens of other people. During meditation, instead of finding stillness, he would be overwhelmed by waves of emotions that seemed to have no source. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you taken on someone else's stress as if it were your own? How often do you lie awake worrying about problems that aren't even yours to solve? Kozen was drowning in borrowed suffering, but he didn't understand what was happening to him. He thought his growing misery was a sign of his deepening compassion. The more he suffered, the more spiritual he believed he was becoming. One morning, Master Dojin found Kozen weeping in the meditation hall before dawn. His eyes were hollow, his spirit broken. "Master," Kozen whispered, "I carry the pain of every monk in this temple. Brother Jinzen's doubt, Brother Tetsu's grief, Brother Gaku's fear. How can I call myself compassionate if I don't feel their suffering as my own?" Master Dojin said nothing. Instead, he picked up a clay bowl from the altar and walked to the small stream that ran beside the temple. He filled the bowl with clear, fresh water, then began pouring water from other vessels into it. More and more water, from bowl after bowl, until Kozen's bowl overflowed and the precious water spilled uselessly onto the ground. "Tell me, Kozen," the master said quietly, "does this overflowing bowl help any of the empty ones?" Kozen stared at the spilled water spreading into the dirt, and something shifted in his understanding. The bowl that tries to hold everything ends up helping nothing. This is the first secret that most people never learn. There's a profound difference between compassion and absorption. True compassion, what Buddhists call karuna, is like the sun. It shines warmly on everyone without being dimmed by their darkness. But emotional absorption is like a sponge. It soaks up everything until it becomes heavy, saturated, and useless. When you absorb someone else's pain, you're not helping them heal. You're just creating two suffering people instead of one. The person with the original problem doesn't learn to process their emotions because you're doing it for them. And you become overwhelmed by feelings that were never yours to carry. Master Dojin continued his teaching. Kozen, when you take on another person's suffering, you rob them of their opportunity to grow stronger. Suffering is a teacher, but only when we face it directly. When you rescue people from their emotional experiences, you prevent them from developing their own inner strength. Ask yourself this question right now. Who in your life has trained you to be their emotional container? That family member who calls you every time they're upset. That friend who treats you like their personal therapist. That coworker who dumps their stress on you daily. You think you're being kind, but you're actually enabling their emotional dependency while destroying your own peace. But Kozen's education in emotional freedom was just beginning. What Master Dojin taught him next would reveal the second secret, and it would completely transform how Kozen understood the nature of true help. The next morning, Master Dojin called Kozen to assist him with visitors. A wealthy merchant had arrived at the monastery gates in complete despair. His silk robes were torn, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild with panic. Word had reached him that his entire fleet of trading ships had been destroyed in a storm. His fortune was gone, his reputation ruined. His family would be left with nothing. Kozen expected this would be the perfect opportunity to practice what he had learned about the overflowing bowl. But he was still confused about how to help someone without absorbing their pain. How do you show compassion without feeling their suffering? The merchant threw himself at Master Dojin's feet, weeping uncontrollably. "Master," he cried, "I have lost everything. My ships, my gold, my future. My wife will leave me. My children will starve. I am thinking of ending my life rather than face this shame. Please, take away this unbearable pain." Kozen braced himself for the merchant's emotional storm to crash over him. In the past, he would have immediately felt the man's panic, absorbed his despair, taken on his hopelessness as if it were his own. But this time, he watched Master Dojin's response with intense curiosity. Something extraordinary happened. Master Dojin sat perfectly still. His posture remained upright but relaxed. His breathing stayed calm and deep. His eyes were filled with genuine kindness as he listened to every word the merchant spoke, but his energy remained completely unshaken. The master wasn't cold or distant. He wasn't ignoring the man's suffering, but he also wasn't drowning in it. He was like a mountain witnessing a storm, present and solid, but unmoved by the chaos swirling around him. This is the second secret, what Zen Buddhists call Fudoshin, the immovable mind. It's not coldness or indifference. It's the profound stability that comes from being so centered in your own being that external chaos cannot disturb your inner calm. Master Dogen spoke to the merchant with deep kindness. "I hear your pain," he said gently. "Loss is indeed difficult to bear. But tell me, before you owned these ships, were you a person of worth?" The merchant looked up, confused by the question. "I suppose so, master. And if you rebuild your fortune, will you be more worthy than you are right now?" The merchant hesitated. I don't understand. Your worth as a human being has never depended on your possessions. Your ships did not create your value, and their loss cannot destroy it. You are seeking to escape suffering. But suffering is simply the mind's resistance to change. What if, instead of fighting this experience, you allowed it to teach you who you really are beneath your roles and possessions? Here's what amazed Kozen most. As Master Dogen spoke these words with unwavering calm, something remarkable happened to the merchant. Being in the presence of someone who wasn't drowning in emotion allowed him to find his own stability. Within an hour, his panic began to subside. His breathing slowed. His perspective started to shift. The merchant left the monastery that day not because his problems were solved, but because he had reconnected with his own inner strength. He had been reminded that he was more than his circumstances. After the merchant departed, Kozen was bewildered. "Master," he asked, "how could you remain so unmoved by his suffering? Didn't you feel compassion for his pain?" Master Dogen's answer changed everything Kozen thought he knew about helping others. "Kozen, if you are drowning and someone who is also drowning tries to save you, what happens?" "We both drown, master." "Exactly. But if someone standing firmly on the shore throws you a rope, we both survive. Your emotional stability is the rope you throw to those who are drowning in chaos. If you jump into the turbulent water with them, you have nothing solid to offer. Think about this in your own life. When someone comes to you in crisis, do you immediately start feeling their anxiety, their anger, their despair? Do you think that matching their emotional state proves you care? Or do you stay grounded in your own center, offering them the gift of your stability? The most healing thing you can offer another person is not your sympathy, but your unshakable presence. When you remain calm while they are in chaos, you give them permission to find their own calm. When you stay centered while they are spinning, you remind them that center exists. But Master Dogen wasn't finished with Kozen's education. The third secret would challenge everything Kozen believed about the nature of emotions themselves. And what he was about to learn would explain why some people seem to carry emotions that don't even belong to them. Several weeks after witnessing Master Dogen's teaching with the merchant, Kozen faced his greatest test yet. A scandal had erupted in the monastery that shook the entire community to its core. Brother Ise, a respected senior monk, had been discovered secretly breaking his vows. He had been sneaking out at night to visit a woman in the village, betraying everything the monastery stood for. The news spread like wildfire through the temple halls. Some monks were furious at Ise's betrayal. Others felt deep shame for judging a fellow brother. Many questioned their own commitment to the monastic path. The entire community was drowning in emotional chaos. As always, the troubled monks began seeking out Kozen. Brother after brother came to him, pouring out their feelings about the scandal. And despite everything he had learned about the overflowing bowl and staying centered, Kozen found himself beginning to absorb it all again. By evening, Kozen's mind was a hurricane of conflicting emotions. He felt rage at Ise's deception, guilt for judging another monk, confusion about his own spiritual path, fear that the monastery's reputation was ruined forever. The emotions crashed over him in waves, each one feeling absolutely real and urgent. But that night, as Kozen sat in meditation, overwhelmed by this emotional storm, something unprecedented happened. A question arose in his mind that would change everything he understood about feelings themselves. Which of these emotions are actually mine? He began examining each feeling with careful attention. The anger he felt toward Ise's betrayal. But wait, Kozen realized, he barely knew Ise personally. They had spoken perhaps 3 times in 2 years. How could he have such intense feelings about someone he hardly knew? He looked at the guilt he was carrying about judging others. But when had he actually judged anyone? As he traced this emotion back, he realized it belonged to Brother Mayon, who had confessed this exact feeling to him just hours earlier. One by one, Kozen examined every emotion swirling through his consciousness and made a startling discovery. Nearly none of them originated from his own direct experience. They were all borrowed, absorbed from other people's stories and reactions. This revelation unlocked the 3rd secret, something Zen masters call mujin, the understanding that emotions flow like wind through consciousness, and we mistakenly claim ownership of currents that were never ours to begin with. In Buddhist teaching, the mind is like an empty sky. Emotions are like clouds that pass through it. The sky doesn't become a cloud just because a cloud passes through it. Similarly, you don't become an emotion just because an emotion passes through your awareness. But Kozen had been doing exactly that, taking ownership of every emotional cloud that drifted through his mind, whether it came from his own experience or someone else's sharing. Think about your own emotional landscape right now. How much of what you're feeling actually comes from your direct experience today? How much anxiety are you carrying from news stories about events that don't affect you? How much anger from social media posts? How much sadness from other people's problems? The next morning, Kozen went to Master Dogen with his realization. Master, I've discovered that I've been carrying emotions that don't belong to me. But how do I tell the difference between my emotions and others? Master Dogen's answer was so simple, it was profound. Your emotions arise from your direct experience in this moment. Other people's emotions come to you through their stories about their experiences. He explained that when something happens directly to you, when you witness a beautiful sunset, when you're hurt by harsh words, when you feel joy at an accomplishment, the emotion arises naturally from your being like water from a spring. But when someone tells you about their sunset, their hurt, their joy, any emotion you feel is borrowed, not born. The path to freedom, Master Dogen continued, is learning to witness borrowed emotions without claiming them as your own. But recognizing borrowed emotions was only the beginning. Kozen still needed to learn how to maintain his own emotional clarity when surrounded by other people's chaos. The 4th secret would teach him something even more powerful about the nature of consciousness itself. One crisp autumn morning, Master Dogen led Kozen to a hidden lake deep in the mountains behind the monastery. The water was so perfectly still it looked like polished glass, reflecting the surrounding pine trees and clouds with absolute clarity. Every detail of the sky above was mirrored perfectly in the water below. Kozen, Master Dogen said quietly, "What do you see when you look at this lake?" "I see the sky, Master, the trees, the clouds. Everything is reflected perfectly." Master Dogen picked up a small stone and tossed it into the center of the lake. Immediately, ripples spread across the surface, distorting the reflection until the clear images became fragmented and unclear. "Now what do you see?" "The reflection is broken, Master. I can no longer see the sky clearly." "This," Master Dogen said, "is the 4th secret. Your mind is like this lake. When it is still, it reflects reality with perfect clarity. But when it is disturbed by emotional reactions, you can no longer see truth clearly." He explained that most people live their entire lives with rippled minds, constantly reacting to every emotional disturbance around them. Someone shares their anger, and ripples spread across your consciousness. Someone tells you their fears, and your mental lake becomes choppy. Someone brings their chaos into your presence, and suddenly you can't think clearly anymore. But watch what happens when we simply wait, Master Dogen continued. They sat in silence as the ripples gradually calmed. Slowly, the lake's surface returned to perfect stillness, and once again the sky reflected clearly in the water. Your mind has this same natural capacity for stillness, but you must stop throwing stones into it with every emotional reaction. This teaching revealed something profound about consciousness itself. In Zen Buddhism, this is called shikantaza, just sitting, the practice of maintaining perfect mental stillness regardless of what chaos surrounds you. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about not letting them disturb your essential clarity. Think about the last time you had to make an important decision while you were emotionally upset. How did that work out for you? When your mind is rippled with borrowed emotions, you can't see situations clearly. You react from confusion rather than responding from wisdom. Kozen began to understand why he had been making so many poor choices lately. His mind had been constantly churned up by other people's emotions. He was trying to navigate his life while looking at distorted reflections instead of clear reality. Master Dogen continued the teaching. When someone brings emotional chaos into your presence, you have a choice. You can throw stones into your own lake by reacting to their emotions, or you can maintain the stillness that allows you to see clearly what is actually happening. This is what true meditation teaches us, not to escape from reality, but to see it without distortion. When your mind is like this still lake, you can recognize when someone is sharing their own inner turbulence. You can witness their storm without creating a storm in yourself. But Master Kozen asked, doesn't this make me cold and unfeeling? If I don't react to other people's emotions, am I still compassionate? Master Dogen smiled. Tell me, Kozen, when this lake is perfectly still, does it refuse to reflect the sky? Does it reject the trees? Does it turn away from the clouds? No, Master. It reflects. The following morning, Master Dogen invited Kozen to participate in the traditional tea ceremony, something they had done countless times before. But today, the Master's approach was different. Before they began, he spent several minutes in silent meditation, his hands resting gently on the tea implements. Watch carefully, he instructed Kozen. Today you will learn how to create sacred space that protects your energy while remaining open to serve others. As Master Dogen began the ceremony, Kozen noticed something extraordinary. Every movement was deliberate and mindful. The Master seemed to create an invisible boundary around the tea preparation area, a space of such profound calm that it felt separate from the ordinary world. When the Master lifted the tea bowl, he paused and spoke softly. This bowl represents your consciousness. Before you can serve tea to others, you must first ensure the bowl is clean and empty of anything that does not belong. He cleaned the bowl with slow, meditative movements. Just as I clean this bowl before preparing tea, you must clean your consciousness of borrowed emotions before you can truly help others. The Master then heated the water with careful attention. The fire that heats this water is like your inner peace. It must be tended constantly, protected from being extinguished by the winds of other people's chaos. As he whisked the tea, creating a perfect foam, Master Dogen continued his teaching. The sixth secret is learning to create sacred space wherever you go. This is not about physical walls or distance from others. It is about maintaining an inner sanctuary that remains pure regardless of external circumstances. He gestured to the small tea room around them. Notice how this space feels different from the rest of the monastery. Here, we speak quietly, move mindfully, honor the present moment. This is because we have consciously created sacred space through our intention and attention. You can create this same sacred space within your own consciousness. When you are fully present, fully centered, fully clear about what belongs in your inner world and what does not, you become like this tea room. People can enter your presence, but they cannot disturb your essential peace. Kozen watched as Master Dojin served the tea with perfect grace. Even this simple act felt like a meditation, surrounded by an invisible boundary of mindfulness that kept the sacred separate from the mundane. But Master, Kozen asked, how do we maintain this sacred space when dealing with people like the hungry ghost merchant? How do we serve them without allowing them to contaminate our inner sanctuary? Master Dojin smiled and pointed to the tea room's entrance. Notice that this room has a doorway. We welcome guests, but they must enter on our terms, in our way, respecting our sacred space. They cannot bring the chaos of the outer world into this place of peace. Your consciousness must work the same way. You can welcome people into your presence, but you decide what energy is allowed into your inner sanctuary. You can serve others without allowing their chaos to enter your sacred space. Think about your own life right now. Do you have any sacred space that belongs entirely to you? A place in your consciousness where other people's dramas cannot reach? Or do you allow everyone unlimited access to your inner world, letting them rearrange your piece whenever they need something? The master concluded the ceremony by cleaning each implement with the same careful attention he had used to prepare the tea. Sacred space must be maintained through constant mindfulness. Every day, you must clean your consciousness of what does not belong, just as I clean these tea implements. But creating sacred space was only part of the protection Kozen needed to learn. The seventh secret would reveal something even more powerful about the nature of choice itself, and how every moment offers an opportunity to either absorb chaos or maintain freedom. One misty morning, Master Dojin led Kozen to a place where the mountain path split into two directions. One path was wide and well-worn, sloping gently downward toward the valley. The other was narrow and steep, winding upward through dense forest toward the peak. "Stand here," Master Dojin instructed, "and tell me what you see." Kozen examined both paths carefully. "The lower path looks easy, Master. It's broad and smooth, and I can see where it leads. The upper path appears difficult and uncertain. I cannot see where it ends." "Exactly," Master Dojin replied. "This crossroads represents the seventh secret. In every moment of your life, especially when someone brings their emotional chaos to you, you face these same two paths." He pointed to the lower path. "This is the path of automatic reaction. When someone shares their anger, you automatically feel angry. When they express fear, you automatically become afraid. When they bring drama, you automatically absorb it. This path feels natural because it requires no conscious choice. You simply react as you have always reacted." Then he gestured toward the steep upward path. "This is the path of conscious response. When someone brings emotional chaos to you, you pause, you choose your response based on wisdom rather than habit. This path requires effort and awareness, but it leads to freedom." "But Master," Kozen asked, "isn't it more compassionate to feel what others feel? Doesn't the automatic path show that I care?" Master Dojin picked up two stones from the ground. "Watch carefully," he said, and threw the first stone down the easy path. It rolled quickly out of sight, gaining momentum as it tumbled downward. "See how this stone has no control over its direction once it begins rolling. It goes wherever the path takes it." Then he placed the second stone carefully on the steep upward path. "This stone," he said, must be placed with intention. It cannot roll by itself. Every step of its journey requires conscious effort and choice. Your emotional responses work exactly the same way. The automatic path feels effortless because you surrender your power of choice. You become like the rolling stone, reactive and out of control. But the conscious path requires you to choose your response in each moment. The master sat down at the crossroads and continued his teaching. Most people spend their entire lives on the automatic path, reacting to every emotional stimulus around them. They think this makes them more human, more caring, more connected. But it actually makes them less capable of genuine help because they are constantly being swept away by forces they cannot control. The conscious path teaches you that compassion is not automatic emotion. Compassion is chosen response. When you pause between someone else's emotional trigger and your reaction, you create space for wisdom to arise. Think about your daily interactions. How often do you automatically mirror the mood of whoever you're with? How quickly do you absorb the anxiety of a worried friend or the anger of a frustrated family member? In each of these moments, you are standing at this crossroads, though you may not realize it. The seventh secret is recognizing that you always have a choice. You can take the automatic path of reaction, or you can choose the conscious path of response. One leads to emotional chaos and the loss of your inner peace. The other leads to freedom and the ability to truly serve others from a place of wisdom. But choosing the conscious path requires understanding something deeper about the nature of attachment itself, which would become the foundation of the eighth secret. Behind the monastery lay a famous rock garden that Master Dogen tended with meticulous care. 15 stones were arranged in perfect harmony on a bed of raked gravel, each stone placed with profound intention. Visitors would often sit for hours contemplating the garden's mysterious beauty, though few understood its deeper teaching. One afternoon, as Kozen helped rake the gravel into precise patterns, he noticed something that had escaped him before. Despite spending hours each day caring for the garden, Master Dogen never seemed possessive of it. He tended it with complete devotion, yet appeared utterly detached from the results of his work. When rain disturbed the carefully raked patterns, the master simply re-raked them without frustration. When visiting monks accidentally stepped on the gravel, leaving footprints, he smoothed them away without irritation. When autumn winds scattered leaves across the stones, he cleared them with the same peaceful attention he brought to everything else. Master, Kozen asked as they worked together, "How can you care so deeply for this garden, yet remain so untroubled when it becomes disturbed?" Master Dogen paused in his raking and smiled. "This garden teaches the eighth secret, Kozen. True love does not possess. True care does not cling. I tend this garden not because I own it, but because tending is my gift to offer." He gestured to the 15 stones arranged in their timeless pattern. "These stones have been here for centuries before I arrived, and they will remain long after I am gone. I do not rake this gravel because it belongs to me, but because the act of raking is a meditation, a service, a way of honoring beauty. This is how you must learn to love people," Master Dogen continued. "Care for them without owning them. Support them without controlling their choices. Be present for them without making their problems your identity." Kozen began to understand something profound about his previous relationships. He had been loving people the way a collector loves possessions, trying to own their happiness, control their decisions, fix their problems. When they remained troubled despite his efforts, he felt like a failure. When they made choices he disagreed with, he felt personally rejected. But Master, Kozen asked, "If I don't feel responsible for other people's happiness, how do I show that I care?" Master Dogen continued raking in smooth, meditative strokes. "Watch how I tend this garden. I give it my complete attention when I am here. But I do not lie awake at night, worrying about whether the stones are lonely. I water the few plants with care, but I do not try to force them to bloom on my schedule. I protect the space from obvious harm, but I do not try to control the weather. This is detached compassion. You offer your presence, your wisdom, your support freely, but you do not take responsibility for how others choose to use your gifts. You love them enough to allow them their own journey, even when that journey includes struggles you wish you could spare them. Think about someone in your life you love deeply. How much energy do you spend trying to control their choices, fix their problems, or manage their emotions? How would your relationship change if you offered the same quality of care that Master Dogen brought to his garden? Present when needed, devoted but not possessive, helpful but not controlling. The eighth secret reveals that the deepest form of love is learning to care without carrying, to support without suffering, to remain devoted without becoming dependent on the outcomes of your devotion. But even detached compassion required one more crucial element, which Kozen would discover through the ninth secret about the nature of resilience itself. During a fierce spring storm that battered the monastery for 3 days, Kozen watched from his window as trees throughout the valley responded differently to the howling winds. The proud oak trees stood rigid against the gusts, their thick trunks and sturdy branches refusing to bend. But one by one, he heard the terrible crack of wood as even the mightiest oaks began to break under the relentless pressure. However, near the stream at the valley's edge, an ancient weeping willow danced gracefully with the wind. Its branches swayed and bent so completely that they nearly touched the ground, yet when the storm passed, the willow stood unharmed while broken oaks littered the landscape around it. The next morning, Master Dogen found Kozen staring thoughtfully at the aftermath of the storm. "What did the wind teach you last night?" the master asked. Kozen pointed to the fallen oak and the undamaged willow. "Master, I watched the strong trees break while the flexible ones survived. But I'm confused. Haven't you taught me to be like a mountain, unmoved by external forces? How do I reconcile staying centered with being flexible?" Master Dogen smiled and walked toward the weeping willow. "This tree teaches the ninth secret, Kozen. There is a difference between your core and your response. Your core must remain unshakable, like deep roots. But your responses must flow like these branches." He touched one of the willow's graceful branches. "Watch how this branch bends completely with the wind, yet it never breaks. It yields without surrendering its essential nature. The tree does not become the wind, but it does not try to fight the wind either. This is how you must learn to move through the emotional storms that others bring into your life. Your inner peace, your sense of self, your spiritual center must remain as stable as this tree's roots. But your external responses can be flexible, adapting to each situation without losing your essential balance." Master Dogen continued his teaching. The oak tree's rigidity was actually a form of weakness disguised as strength. It insisted that the world conform to its expectations rather than learning to dance with reality. When you encounter someone having an emotional crisis, you don't need to stand rigid like the oak, refusing to acknowledge their pain. You can bend with compassion while staying rooted in your own peace. Kozen began to understand. So when my sister calls crying about her relationship problems, I can listen with kindness and offer support, bending toward her need, without breaking my own inner calm by absorbing her drama. "Exactly," Master Dogen replied. "Flexibility in response, stability in essence. You can be present for others' storms without becoming the storm yourself. You can acknowledge their pain without taking it into your body. You can offer comfort without compromising your center." The willow teaches us that true strength is not rigidity but resilience, the ability to meet life's challenges with grace, to remain unbroken while staying responsive to the needs of each moment. But maintaining this balance between flexibility and stability required understanding one final principle about the nature of emptiness itself, which would become the foundation for the 10th secret. The next week, Master Dogen began teaching Kozen a practice that seemed contradictory to everything he thought he knew about serving others. Each morning, before the daily meal, Kozen was instructed to sit in meditation while holding his empty begging bowl, focusing entirely on its emptiness rather than anticipating what it might contain. At first, this felt frustrating and pointless. The bowl's emptiness seemed like a void, a lack, something to be filled as quickly as possible. But as days passed, something remarkable began to shift in Kozen's understanding. "Master," Kozen asked after a week of this practice, "why do you have me meditate on emptiness? Shouldn't I be focusing on how to serve others, how to fill my bowl so I can share with those in need?" Master Dogen picked up Kozen's bowl and held it up to catch the morning light streaming through the temple windows. "Tell me, what makes this bowl useful? The clay, Master, the shape, the craftsmanship?" "No, Kozen. The bowl's usefulness comes entirely from its emptiness. Without empty space, it cannot hold tea, rice, or water. The emptiness is not the absence of something, it is the presence of infinite possibility." This revealed the 10th secret, what Buddhists call sunyata, the understanding that emptiness is not a void but the source of all capacity. Your consciousness works exactly the same way as this bowl. When it is full of borrowed emotions, other people's problems, and endless mental chatter, it has no space to receive wisdom, clarity, or genuine insight. Master Dogen continued the teaching. Most people fear emptiness in their minds because they confuse it with loneliness or meaninglessness. But mental emptiness is like this bowl's emptiness. It creates space for what truly serves. When your consciousness is empty of what doesn't belong to you, it becomes infinitely receptive to what does. Think about your busiest, most stressful days. How much mental space do you have for creativity, for inspiration, for genuine connection with others? When your mind is cluttered with everyone else's anxieties and dramas, there is no room for your own wisdom to arise. The empty bowl practice teaches you to value the spaciousness of your own consciousness. Instead of rushing to fill every moment with activity, every silence with conversation, every pause with worry, you learn to rest in the pregnant emptiness that allows new possibilities to emerge. "But Master," Kozen asked, "how do I maintain this inner emptiness while still being available to help others?" Master Dogen demonstrated by pouring tea into the empty bowl. See how the bowl receives the tea completely, holding it with perfect presence. But when the tea is consumed, the bowl returns naturally to emptiness, ready to receive whatever comes next. It does not cling to the memory of previous contents. This is how you serve others from emptiness. You receive their sharing completely when they need you present, but you do not store their emotions in your consciousness afterward. You return to emptiness, ready for whatever life brings next. The 10th secret teaches that your greatest gift to others is not your fullness, but your spaciousness. When you maintain inner emptiness, you become infinitely available without ever becoming overwhelmed. But even this profound understanding required one more element, which would be revealed through the 11th secret about finding peace amidst chaos. In the monastery's central courtyard stood an ancient bronze bell that had not been struck for over 50 years. Unlike the daily bells that called monks to prayer, this particular bell remained perpetually silent, yet it had become the most revered object in the entire temple. One morning, as construction work began on a new meditation hall, the monastery filled with the sounds of hammering, sawing, and shouting workers. The peaceful atmosphere was completely shattered. Most monks found it impossible to meditate or maintain their usual inner calm amidst the constant noise and disruption. Kozen watched as his fellow brothers became increasingly agitated. Some retreated to distant corners of the monastery, trying to escape the chaos. Others complained bitterly about the disturbance to their spiritual practice. A few even suggested halting the construction until a quieter time. But Master Dojin appeared completely unaffected by the cacophony around him. He sat peacefully in the courtyard, near the silent bell, his meditation as deep and serene as if he was surrounded by perfect silence. "Master," Kozen asked during a brief lull in the construction noise, "how can you maintain such peace when chaos surrounds us? The noise makes it impossible to concentrate." Master Dojin gestured toward the silent bell. "This bell teaches the 11th secret. Kozen, true silence is not the absence of sound. True silence is the presence of unshakable inner stillness that exists independent of external conditions." He placed his hand gently on the bell's bronze surface. "This bell has been silent for 50 years, yet it has never stopped being a bell. The hammering and sawing happening around us cannot change its essential nature. Similarly, external chaos cannot disturb your essential peace unless you allow it to." The master continued his teaching while construction noise crashed around them. Most people believe that peace requires peaceful conditions, that calm requires quiet surroundings. But this is a misunderstanding. External peace is temporary and fragile. Internal peace is permanent and indestructible when properly cultivated. Think about your own life. How often do you postpone inner calm until your circumstances become more peaceful? How many times do you tell yourself you'll find peace when your family stops being dramatic, when your workplace becomes less stressful, when the world becomes quieter? Master Dojin smiled as a particularly loud crash echoed from the construction site. The 11th secret teaches that you can carry unshakable silence within you regardless of what chaos swirls around you. Like this bell, your essential nature remains peaceful no matter what sounds fill the air. Your inner stillness is not dependent on other people's behavior, external circumstances, or environmental conditions. It is a quality of consciousness that you can access in any moment, under any conditions, if you remember that peace is not something you find, it is something you are. But mastering this inner silence would require integrating all 11 secrets into a complete understanding, which would become the foundation of the 12th and final secret. Years had passed since Kozen first arrived at the monastery as a young monk drowning in borrowed emotions. Now, as he prepared for his final teaching with Master Dojin, he had become known throughout the temple as someone who could sit peacefully with anyone's suffering without being disturbed by it. On the morning of his graduation ceremony, Master Dojin led Kozen to the same mountain lake where he had learned about mental stillness years before. The water was as mirror-clear as ever, reflecting the sky with perfect clarity. "Tell me, Kozen, what have you learned during your time here?" Kozen reflected on his journey. "Master, I have learned that most of the suffering I carried was not mine. I have learned to distinguish between compassion and absorption, between caring and carrying. I can now sit with others' pain without drowning in it myself." Master Dojin nodded approvingly. "And what is the result of this learning?" "I am free, Master, free to help others without losing myself, free to love without being consumed, free to remain peaceful regardless of the chaos around me." This brings us to the 12th and final secret, Master Dojin said. True liberation is not freedom from others' emotions, but freedom within any emotional environment. You have learned not to escape from difficult people or challenging situations, but to remain yourself no matter who you encounter. The master picked up a handful of water from the lake, letting it flow through his fingers back into its source. See how this water maintains its essential nature, whether it is in my hand or in the lake. It does not become less water when contained, nor more water when released. You have learned to be like this water, maintaining your essential peace whether you are alone in meditation or surrounded by emotional chaos. Master Dogen continued, "The 12th secret is understanding that your liberation serves everyone around you. When you stop absorbing others' emotions, you give them space to develop their own emotional strength. When you remain centered, you become a point of stability that others can rely upon. When you maintain your peace, you remind everyone in your presence that peace is possible. The greatest gift you can offer this world is your own freedom, not freedom from caring, but freedom within caring, not freedom from connection, but freedom within relationship. You have learned to be present without being possessed, engaged without being enslaved." Kozen bowed deeply, understanding that his real education was just beginning. Now he would carry this wisdom into the world, demonstrating through his very being that it is possible to love deeply without losing yourself, to serve others without sacrificing your peace. The 12 secrets had set him free, so there you have it. The 12 ancient secrets that Buddhist monks have guarded for over 15 centuries. 12 teachings that can completely transform how you move through the world, how you relate to others, and most importantly, how you protect your own inner peace. Let me ask you the same question I posed at the beginning. How much of the emotional weight you carry every day actually belongs to you? Now that you've heard Kozen's journey, you probably have a very different answer. These aren't just beautiful stories from ancient times. These are practical tools you can use starting today. The next time someone tries to dump their emotional chaos on you, remember the overflowing bowl. When you feel yourself absorbing someone else's anxiety, recall the mirror lake and return to stillness. When you encounter an energy vampire, think of the hungry ghost and maintain your sacred space. You don't have to spend years in a monastery to master these teachings. You can begin practicing them in your very next conversation, your next family gathering, your next stressful day at work. But here's what I want you to understand most clearly. Learning these secrets will change your relationships in ways that might surprise you. Some people who have been using you as their emotional dumping ground won't like the new boundaries you create. They might accuse you of being cold, uncaring, or selfish. This is normal. This is their resistance to losing their emotional support system. Stay strong in your practice. You're not abandoning them, you're teaching them to find their own inner strength. Remember, true compassion sometimes looks like saying no. Real love sometimes requires letting people face their own challenges instead of rescuing them from every difficulty. If these ancient teachings resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Dharma and hit that notification bell. There's so much more wisdom to explore, so many more secrets that can set you free. And I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me which of the 12 secrets spoke to you most powerfully. Which one are you most excited to practice in your own life? Your journey to emotional freedom starts now. The question is, are you ready to stop absorbing pain and start living in peace? The ancient masters are waiting to guide you. All you have to do is take the first step.